Hey, this is Derek Jordan. Welcome to the World Fusion Show, where we bring you the leading innovators in world fusion music. Today, I am delighted to have Mei Han, who is a zheng player, and she is Chinese, and the instrument, the zheng, is an ancient Chinese instrument, sometimes also called the guzheng. So welcome, Mei Han, to the World Fusion Show.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for having me on this show.
Thank you for joining us. It's just fantastic to have you. And you are our first Chinese guest on the World Fusion Show. So
Wow.
I hope there are many more, but it's great to have you. And I see that you are surrounded by some wonderful Chinese instruments. You want to tell us about that?
Yes, I am now sitting in the middle of exhibition hall of the Center for Chinese Music and Culture at the Middle Tennessee State University in Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
All right. So what are some of those instruments behind you?
These are considered Chinese Han instruments, and from the far right on my hand, right hand is sanxian, 3-string fretless lute, and then 4-string pipa, which is a tear-shaped lute that came through the Silk Road to China about 2,000 years ago. And besides it, that small instrument is called the liuqin, is a modern version of reformed folk instrument from northern China based on the shape of pipa. And the last lute is a round shape, is called the ruan. This is a medium-sized ruan, so therefore called the zhongruan. The history of this instrument also goes back to over 2,000 years. And that long zither is a zheng. That is a 16-string steel string zheng made in the mid of 20th century. Right now in China, the standard zheng has 21 strings, which is lying behind me.
And is it nylon strings often, or always?
Actually, it changed from time to time. Started with silk string.
Yes.
Then cord, which is either steel or brass. And then now the strings are metal cord wound with nylon.
Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. And I know that is your main instrument, I guess the one you play most often. And we'll hear some of that later in the show. But I wanted to start by asking you about how you got into music. And you grew up in China during the Cultural Revolution.
Yes.
Very unusual upbringing. And your exposure to music at that time was quite limited by the Chinese propaganda and stuff. So would you tell us about what that was like?
Well, my parents were very musical, I would say, but they didn't have any chance to develop their musicianship. So they put hope on their kids. And I am the youngest in the family. And during the Cultural Revolution, all the students graduated from high school would be sent to countryside to do labor work. And my parents didn't want me to go through that. Yeah. And therefore they asked if I would like to learn the instrument. So part of this for them is for me to avoid to go through that process. But for me, this is something I love. I started learning songs when I was even 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah, you said you used to listen to a phonograph at your home. And what kind of music did you listen to?
Well, we had a box of records. Most of them were revolutionary songs or, say, compositions written between 1950 and 1960. Yeah. The lyrics are quite hilarious now, thinking. It's mostly praising Mao.
Of course.
And the Communist Party.
Right. That's right. I understand. But what an unusual early exposure to music. It wasn't like you were presented with the world of music or even traditional Chinese music, right?
Yeah. First time I saw the zheng, when I was mentioned to this instrument, I didn't have any clue And so didn't most Chinese.
Yeah.
During the Cultural Revolution. These instruments were considered a dying instrument. That's
right.
why it is called zheng. Gu means antiquity, because this instrument is old, and during that time, most people didn't know that.
So how old is it, do you think?
The written history goes back to about 2,500 years, and I'd say between 25 to 3,000 years.
Wow, fantastic. So we're going to watch a video next, which has you playing in a duet with one of my very favorite musicians, Howard Levy. And can you tell me, set up the video for us, how you met Howard and how you got to play with him?
I met Howard 2 years ago in Nashville, and because he plays harmonica, which is a descendant of Chinese zheng, that behind me, that long pipe instrument. And I have a concert series that I present, which is pair Chinese instruments with the same type or same family instruments that played in North America, and bring them together as a dialogue. So I invited Howard to play with Chinese sheng player Hu Jianbing, who lives in New York. So this concert happened last October. And this video was one of the testing videos for our documentary. So I was just there to test the camera. So,
yeah. Well, it was a nice test. I'm glad you did that. So I would love to go to this video right now and listen to this beautiful, it's an improvisation that you're doing, right?
Yes.
With Howard? Okay, let's do it. Fantastic. Well, that's just great. That's beautiful. They work really well together, the two instruments, I think. And actually, I got Howard. Howard's going to be coming on the World Fusion show, have his own episode. It's
Wonderful.
I'm going to be working with him in a couple of weeks, and I'm really excited about that as well. So you play with a bunch of groups. You started your own group. You also came to Vancouver, I think it was, in the late 90s to study ethnomusicology. So tell us about what it meant for you to come to, Canada and to work there.
Wow, it's, I'd say it's life-changing. I came here to study, but at the same time, it opens door for me to meet musicians from different cultures. Vancouver is this mega city, and that you basically can find musicians from every part of the world, every single culture. And I started to learn from my school study, African music, Indian music, and Korean music, and Vietnamese music. At the same time, I find musicians in that community that can actually play live.
Yeah.
So this is not something from textbook or listening to recordings. And so that really was inspiring. And I started working with musicians there.
They must have been equally inspired to hear the zheng and to hear you play with your Chinese flavor.
That's true. However, my playing has changed quite a bit since I came to the West. First of all, as a conservatory trained musician in China, we don't learn improvisation, which is a shortcoming. Although technically Chinese musicians, reach a very high level of proficiency, but in the festival setting, especially folk festival, if you don't improvise, you just cannot function.
Right. Yeah, no, that's true. Improv. I'm very into improvisation. It's been a big part of my whole musical learning, and it's essential, I think. And I do believe it should be taught.
Yes.
From the earliest time children start learning instruments, I think they should be presented with opportunities to improvise and encouraged to improvise.
Right. Yeah, before I came to learn improvisation, basically my way of playing an instrument and also interpreting a composition was through reading music and goes to my brain and come to my hands.
Sure.
And it doesn't directly touch my heart.
Unfortunately,
but I didn't know that until I started to improvise. And all of a sudden, I had this tinkle and I had this feeling that I have never had before.
Oh, yeah.
And I just opened my eyes. I said, wow, I feel free.
That's right.
Is that freedom that really is what the art is about.
I totally couldn't agree more with you. Thank you for sharing that. I'd love to go to our second video, which is you playing with some Indian percussionists, Indian musicians. It's so interesting, this fusion of the Chinese and the Indian, quite unusual. let's just go to that. Do you want to say something first quickly about it? Or?
This is 2009 in Kuching, one of the Malaysian cities in Borneo. This is a rainforest world music festival.
Yeah.
And the Indian musicians, one play North Indian instrument, one is from South Indian band. So actually between them, they're already considered a mix.
Right, of course. Thank you, that's great. Let's go right to the video and check this out. It's really cool. That is so cool. That is so great. And I see you get into a lot of strumming with your playing, which is not, I haven't heard that before with the zheng. And it's very cool. It adds a lot of energy and rhythm to your playing.
Yes, the zheng is considered a melodic instrument, and it has a lot of subtlety, which you heard from the piece I played with Howard.
Yes.
Which comes from the bending strings on the left-hand side.
Right.
And that's one beautiful, thing we inherited from our ancestors.
Yeah.
But I also find, as a modern person, as a dynamic person, I needed to have something from the other side, which is this exciting and also rhythmic stuff that the instrument traditionally not producing.
That's right. And it's very cool what you're doing. I really like it. It adds, like you say, that energy and excitement to the music, which is wonderful. Now, that was your group, Red Chamber, right, that you're working with? Now, the next video we're going to go to is, well, Chinese bluegrass, okay, right? It's so cool. Playing with a bluegrass group, but also with Red Chamber as well, right?
That's right.
And in this one, you're not playing the zheng, but you're playing, which one is the instrument now?
It's right above me, liuqin.
Yeah,
it's small lute. Sounds like a mandolin.
It does, actually, it does. And it's interesting how your group imitates some of the, what you call the other one, the long neck instrument?
It's called the sanxian.
Sanxian.
Yeah.
Like the shamakin, the Japanese instrument, right?
Shamisen.
Shamisen. Yes. And it sounds like a banjo, right? I mean, she does some very banjo things. Anyway, I think it's really interesting. I'd love to go to that right now, okay, and watch this. Chinese bluegrass That's great. So great. And you put a big smile on our sound engineer's face, Al Stockwell, who is part of a legendary local bluegrass group that I used to play with too. So he was just digging. He plays the mandolin, and he's just enjoying that very much. So that was great. I was glad to see Al getting into it. So anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, from last piece, you could see that Chinese band, which the red chamber there, has a lot of commonality with that bluegrass band, which is John Reichman's Jaybird. Not only in terms of instrumentation, but also the pentatonic scale, and also this A and B structure if you get more into music. And because of that, I felt that there's so much in common that we have between the two cultures that we need to explore more and to put them together and to show the world how we're all connected.
I think that's great. Thank you. Mei Han, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show today and joining us, sharing some of your culture and your just wonderful instruments and your upbringing, all this stuff. It's really great. I'm sure our audience is going to really enjoy it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and all the best to your show.
Okay, thank you so much. Hey, all right, it's Derek Jordan. Thank you for joining us today on the World Fusion Show. As you can see, it's always something new and different that we're trying to bring you here. So please follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and remember, as we always say, think globally, listen locally, and support independent music.